Wait, how do I change my camera?
What is going on? Okay, so we are live. I will show your camera in 1 second. So today we are talking clownfish with Robert King's Clownfish. How are you today, Robert?
Hey, I'm good, Devin. How are you?
Wonderful, thank you. Okay, so if you want to flip your camera, I believe there is like a little camera icon somewhere when you click on the screen to flip it.
Let's see. Maybe,
Maybe
maybe. I
there
don't
should
know.
there should be one somewhere on your phone screen. If you tap the screen, I believe it shows up. So
Let everyone know how new I am at this, and
yeah,
I
for
apologize already. Let's see. This is no camera.
yeah,
Let's
that
try
turned it
again.
off. There might be a little arrow beside it that gives you like a camera selector. Or at the top, there might be a little thing to flip it.
I'm pressing buttons, but nothing's happening.
No? Dun dun dun.
Oh, review. Here we go. Allow incoming video. Nope. Start recording. Oh boy.
Or just flip the phone around.
That's what it's gonna come down to. Yeah.
The backup
Okay.
plan. All right, Robert. So you have been into the clownfish for quite a long time. So your clowns are what, 30 years old now?
They'll be 30 in February. Yes.
That's pretty impressive. And they're still laying eggs, making babies?
Yes, they are.
That's,
Um, Here, I'll see if I can show you. I don't know if you can see it.
yeah. Go smidge to the right.
Am I on the right?
Yeah.
Got it?
Yeah. Nice.
That's a lot of eggs.
Yeah, no kidding. So, what I have a question for you. So, I have clowns, and they've never actually spawned for me. Do you do anything to entice them to spawn, or just nature does its thing when the time's right? Or
There are a couple things you can do. Now, first thing is the temperature should be about 82 degrees.
okay,
You can even have it a little warmer than that if you're daring. And keep in mind, the higher the
hmm
temperature, the faster things can go south.
yeah.
Keep
So,
that in mind. Yeah. Also, the feedings. Now,
hmm
if you're feeding once a day, we'll take that one feeding and chop it into 6 feedings.
okay,
So don't necessarily feed more, just feed more often, so that
oh,
they see a constant supply of food. And the last thing that I tell people is, um, if you have rotifers, you could probably even use frozen at this point until they start breeding, of course. Put rotifers in at dusk. That simulates a plankton bloom. It
hmm,
shows the parents that there's food for their young,
okay, that makes sense.
and that helps.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I've never had my tank that hot, so that's probably part of one of the reasons for it.
There you go. How old are your babies? 7?
Yeah, they're about 7 years old. They're actually my first fish for the clownfish, so that's been
Oh, nice.
almost for the saltwater side anyway. So yeah, it's probably about 7, maybe it's 8 now, 7 or 8 years.
All right, cool. I
Yeah,
love trooper coolers.
yeah, it's good. Now, with the blah 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 blah, I was gonna ask the zombie clown. So for people that don't know, what exactly are the zombie clowns?
Zombie clown is an albino black Darwin.
Mm-hmm.
So it turns out that I had 2 pair of wild caught black Darwins back in the day. Um, 1994 was the first pair, and then the second pair was shortly after that. Also wild caught. Now they were both making little black offspring, and all day long. And then one day the female of the first pair that I got was practically died from infection. Um, yeah, it was devastating.
Dang.
And other pair, the male was eating out of turn, and the female was about ready to kill him.
Oh wow.
Don't,
Yikes.
if you're reincarnated as a clownfish, do not eat out of turn. Don't do it. Let her eat first. Let her eat as much as she wants. So I took that female and put her with the original male. Now it turns out that the original male had the albino gene, but his female didn't. And in the other pair, the female had the albino gene, but the male didn't, because neither pair was producing albino black Darwins.
Huh.
So now, what are the odds of getting those 2 fish together in the hands of a breeder?
Yeah, that's pretty crazy.
Yeah, yeah.
And they just
So
been making babies for years and years, eh?
yeah, yeah. It was hard to keep them alive at first. Now I'm getting better at it.
Hmm.
I had great success earlier on until my water quality started to diminish. I was still doing all the water changes that I was doing, and it's just the dense feedings and the higher temperatures caused the nitrates to be pretty high. And when you start out with poor water quality, it's real tough to keep the larval clownfish alive because after about day 9, day 10, you'll start to see ammonia.
Hmm.
And I wasn't catching it quick enough with these more delicate fish.
Yeah.
And I kept losing them. And I tested, there was no ammonia. The next day I tested after I saw a lot of fish dying, and there was a trace. So that's killing them. Then I came across a guy named Brian Covey from Aquachar. I don't know if you know him or you
Yep.
talked to him. Yep. And he told me all about the Aquachar and how it works and how it's pumped up through a 10-foot piece of 4-inch PVC at the Ugandan the orphanage.
Hmm.
And I was scratching my head on that one, and I made this filter called the Aquachar filter. It looks like that.
Nice. So,
And that brought my ammonia down to 0 within an hour.
that's awesome.
So that's what I use in my larval tanks now, and it's working like a charm.
So with the air sewn through it, I've actually heard that. I'd never tried pumping the air through it, but supposedly that gives a lot more benefit.
Oh yeah, slowly. Do it slowly so that it has more time, more reactivity time, I guess.
Very cool. Okay, so nutrients super low, very important for the larval fish to survive and make it. I've seen lots of people where they have eggs in a reef tank and then, they never see babies because they probably get snacked on or who knows what happens. So when that happens, do you take them out and put them in their own separate tanks, or do you leave them in the tank that the eggs were laid in, or what's kind of your approach to it?
I'm glad you asked that question. I wish I could turn this camera around because it's real hard to.
There's probably a way. One of the buttons must do it.
Let me check again. Hold on.
Okay.
I have, I don't know what that does. Grid view, together mode. No.
Nope. Not in the
Not-
bottom corner, not by the camera. I know on the computer there's a little arrow by it, and I can click it and swap to a different camera. So it might be somewhere on the cell phone.
No arrow.
Curses.
Hold on. Share screen. Yep, take snapshot. Start recording. Add people. Turn subtitles on. Allow incoming video. Enable background blur. None of those.
Everything but, eh?
Everything but.
Fingers. Okay.
Good. So let me see if I can show you anyway what I do and what I've done all along. I started out with a 90-gallon reef, and I had a pair of Ocellaris, and my sister had a pet store. Her and my brother-in-law had a pet store in New Jersey called Jersey Reef Concepts, and that was years ago. And I told my brother-in-law, I said, "Listen, I want this fish and this fish." He said, "What's the difference?" I said, "Well, I see them hanging out together. I'm going to breed them."
Mm-hmm.
At that time, that was back in the 90s. He said, "No, you're not. You can't breed them." I said, "Why not?" I was breeding African cichlids, all different strains, egg layers, mouth brooders, live bearers, the whole nine. And
Yeah.
I enjoyed it. Something I enjoyed. I've been breeding fish since I was 12 years old. I am now 60. So
Nice.
it's a long time.
That's a long time.
A long time. But it's something I really love, and it's a passion of mine for a long time. So I got that pair of fish, and it took about, I don't even know, 8 years before they laid eggs. But they laid eggs, and then it took me an additional 2 years to get those larvae to live because not many people were breeding at that time. And the ones that were doing it successfully were very tight-lipped. They didn't want anybody at it. And 2 years it took me to get my first larval clownfish to live. The way I collected them from my 90-gallon reef tank was I put an airline tubing with a rigid tubing shaped like a little hook into the corner of the tank, and then I shined a light on that airline tubing that was draining, siphoning into another tank that I had set up with the bottom drilled out for the overflow, a sponge over the overflow, and that went back into the sump, so it was just a big loop, and it worked.
Super gentle way to do it.
I did that just to get the larval tank water the same as the parent tank water. I didn't know how I was going to get the babies out. I had no idea. I was thinking maybe a cup and scoop them out. I didn't know, and I missed the hatch. And I came back. Oh no, there's no eggs. And I looked in the larval tank. There was 150 babies in there.
Oh wow, that's
Okay,
awesome.
all right, there we go. That
That's
worked.
super cool.
So hey, that's what I do now, and I can show you. For the most part, I can even set it back up. Because I have a pair that were supposed to have bred,
Mm-hmm.
did not. But I'll just show you. I'll just show you the gist of it.
Okay.
Okay, here we go. I don't know if you can see this
Yep.
tube.
Yep.
So this tube, I start to siphon with this tube, and it goes down into my larval tank. You see, I have all these stainless steel clips all over the place.
Yep.
They were. So that goes into the larval tank, and it will flow out of the end of this tube here. Now, up here, I have a book light that I turn on, very low light. When lights are out, you can see that's really bright, and it shines on the end of that tube.
Mm-hmm.
When larval clownfish are born, you can see there's a few eggs left. When larval clownfish are born, they go right to the surface, and then they go right to the light.
Yeah.
When they hit that light, they go right down that tube, little tank.
Cool.
And I left this running for about 3 or 4 days. This tube right here goes from this this net with a sponge in it. I don't know if you can see that. I hope I'm aiming it properly.
Yeah, I can see it.
And that's so that babies won't get sucked into the tube, but the sponge is because this small inside diameter of this tube will clog up real quick, and then you'll have an overflow. You don't want that. So that sponge, that's the reason I have the sponge in there, to keep that from happening.
Yeah.
Now, this tube goes into the sump. You can see the sump in the background there.
Okay.
And that is now full of water. What I do is I take an airline tubing and I stick it up to the highest point, and I just suck out the air, and it fills with water.
So there's no pumps. It's just gravity down to that one, and that one, same thing to the sump, and just a little loop.
Yep. And
That's-
you want this one to be about this big because you don't want this level to rise at all. So this much water that's going in through here, that's how much water will go out through here into the sump. Water will seek its own level when you have this type of a setup.
Mm-hmm. That is an incredibly simple and a nice way to do it.
Babies get in, they can't get out.
Huh. That is awesome.
Let me show you some of the babies I collected last time, and I'm very proud of myself because I did get them all to live, with the exception of one that I kind of squished a little when I was cleaning the tank.
Oh no.
That's the only one that passed away.
Dang.
I'm okay with that. 100% success rate is something I've done before, and I'm starting to do it again with the
Nice.
help of the aid of the AquaChar filter.
That's awesome.
Here's some zombies over here. I don't know if you can tell that they're zombies, but there's a bunch of fish back here. Every one of them made it.
Huh. Super cool.
Yeah. And
That's awesome. So many. One of these days I want to try it. I've only ever tried breeding freshwater. I've never attempted it with saltwater. So
you want to try what?
one of these days I could have to try it. I've only tried it with freshwater fish back in the day. I've never tried it with saltwater to try breeding. So it's pretty cool though.
You should do it. Now, some people think I'm crazy because I do bump my temperature up quite a bit. There's a tank I have upstairs just strictly for grow out. I had a bunch of fish down here.
Mm-hmm.
There's only 9 fish that I had, and I said, I'll put them in there. When I checked the temperature, it was 86.5 degrees.
That's toasty. And that's okay for the fish? No issues?
They've been like that for 2 months. And,
Really?
They're eating well. They're really swimming around real fast. And
Now,
the temperature is really picked up.
with the higher temperature, do you notice that they grow faster? Do you notice any changes like that with the higher metabolism from it?
They definitely grow faster, yeah.
Yeah.
I know people who run facilities. I won't mention any names, but 84 is their standard temperature for grow out.
Crazy.
And when they're at 84, you can feed them 12 times a day without an issue.
Huh. Nice.
Now, I always had the issue of polluting my tank, but with this, I tell you, with this new filter, that's not happening.
Hey, that's awesome. So it works well. So aquachar the bubbler is
Yeah,
a good chunk. Just so that mainly prevents the ammonia. You're saying, right? Does it have effect on nitrates at all? Do you find like is adding
really,
the oxygen kind of helping with denitrification at the same time?
absolutely. Yeah, it really does. It helps with nitrates. It keeps the everything stable. The pH. I started out at 7.8 with the pH. Now this tank here, you can't really see the babies in there. It's a standalone tank, same as this standalone tank. This has been running for a little over 2 months now.
Nice.
Standalone tank. I
Yeah.
have no problem with ammonia. I have no problem with nitrates, and the pH is 8,
Perfect.
between 8 and 8.1. So it's perfect.
Oh yeah.
The aquaculture is actually a biomedia as well.
Mm-hmm.
It starts out as just like a carbon to polish the water, but the way that it's made, it has like little honeycombs. And when Brian told me that, I had to take it upstairs and put it under the microscope. But yes,
He actually sent me the microscope photos when he first got them done. He's like, check it out.
yeah, it's pretty cool. It's pretty
Yeah.
cool, and it works well. And I was sold when after talking to Brian just for a little bit, I was sold. I'm like, this sounds really good. I'm
No,
gonna try.
that's awesome to see that it's like wiped out all the ammoniac, right? Because that's going to be a huge savings right there for all the little guys.
Yeah, do you know Mark Weiss?
Yeah, I think so. That sounds familiar.
Reef Bugs is one of his products.
I think so.
It's old school. He's
Yeah.
old school.
Mm-hmm.
He always told me, he said, don't worry about cleaning your tanks. Keep them dirty. Nobody goes in the ocean and cleans the rocks. I'm like, well, but
You're like, I like to look at it.
look at it. Yeah.
Yep.
But so I haven't done a water change in either one of these tanks. I
Yeah.
add fresh water. That's it.
Well, that's easy.
And I got an ammonia badge. Best $6, $7 I ever spent.
Yep. No, those work well. I've always used for quarantines and whatnot. Now,
Yeah.
if someone, if say their clown's legs in their tank, and they're able to collect them somehow, if they're on a rock or one of the pots or something, what would you suggest they do if they want to try and raise them?
Well, the first thing, and this is very important, learn how to culture rotifers.
Mm-hmm.
If you see that your clownfish is laying eggs, get yourself a culture of rotifers and keep that going. If you can keep a rotifer culture going, you can keep a larval clownfish culture going. There was a paragraph in Joyce Wilkerson's book called Co-Culturing. It's a little paragraph in the book, and that is the paragraph that you need to understand, because once you put rotifers in a larval fish tank. Now, let me back up a little bit. Rotifers are the only first food for larval clownfish. Larval clownfish lack an enzyme in their digestive system that's used to break down food. They just don't have it.
Mm-hmm.
Rotifers have that enzyme. The one they're missing, they have it.
Huh.
Had they known that early on, they probably would have evolved and got rid of that enzyme. No, just kidding. But they need that enzyme to break down the food. And you nutrify your rotifers with as many different types of algae as you can get them to eat. I use Rotogrow Omega. Works good for me. As you can see, I have a 100% success rate, so that works well.
Nice.
And what you do is you add your rotifers into the larval tank. And the way you do this is at one rotifer per fish length. Now, the fish are maybe, they'll get to be about 1/4 of an inch before they go into the morph period. But you want one rotifer per fish length. You don't want them to have to swim further than one fish length to get their next meal. They'll eat.
Okay.
Yes, they'll eat between 1,300 and 1,500 rotifers a day.
Now I have to ask, do you actually use a microscope or count the rotifers, or you're like, look, that should be good?
Yep, that's what I do.
Scientific look.
Put it in there.
So basically just have tons of food available.
Yeah. If you have a large clutch, you have say 300 babies in a tank, they're going to eat more than 50% of the rotifers every day. So you may have to add a little here and there, just a little, just to keep it at one rotifer per fish length. They'll rip through them, and as they get to be 3 or 4 days old, you'll see that they'll eat a little more. So pay attention to the rotifer density in the larval tank. Now, you'll feed your rotifers in the larval tank the same way you feed your rotifers in the rotifer bucket. That's called co-culturing. You culture them both together like one big soup.
So I've only tried doing rotifers once before. I did Fido in pods, and basically I just kept dumping Fido in there, and you split it every day or two. And that was, I mean, it wasn't too bad, you know. At least the Fido had to be super sterile, and you just keep on keeping the water green for the rotifers and just split it. Now, basically, is there any more to it that you do, or is that the quick and dirty summary of it?
I don't use heat.
Mm-hmm.
I just let it stay at room temperature, which is fine for the type of rotifers that I culture. The feedings I do twice a day, about 5 mLs in a gallon gallon of rotifers.
Okay.
Too much. Now, when you again back to the larval clownfish, you want to feed them about half the amount of green. Mix it in with some salt water and drip it in slowly. That'll give you an extra hour of time before you have to feed them again. But yeah, the rotifer cultures, I've had the same culture. I've kept them alive for 5+ years.
Nice.
And,
same culture?
and what's that?
The same culture?
Yeah.
Nice. That's awesome.
I'll tell you right now. I'm going to tell you right now. I'll tell everybody that's watching. When they crash, it is always on hatch night.
Figures, eh?
Right. So make sure you have 2 cultures. 2 rotifer cultures equals 1 rotifer culture on hatch night. That's it.
Fair. Now, do you culture Fido to feed the rotifers, or do you feed them something else?
I don't culture my own Fido anymore. I used to, and that's good. It's a good way of doing it, but it's too costly. It's too time consuming. I get my product from Reef Nutrition.
Nice.
Yeah, and
do you just get the big bags of it?
Yes.
Nice.
Yes. Each bag I think is like 1,000 gallons of Fido.
Huge.
Do the math there. Just 1,000 gallons of water alone.
Not worth the time and effort.
Not worth it. Not worth it. And it works. It works well.
No, that's awesome. No, I've had Chad on the stream before, and he's told me about what they do on those large scale breeding stuff. So good to hear. Good to hear the testimonials.
Yeah, Chad's awesome. He's a great guy.
Yeah,
great customer service over there at Reef Mariculture.
No, definitely. Now, when you have the larval, the babies, how long do you have to feed them rotifers for before you kind of graduate them to larger food? And then I guess what's the next step after rotifers?
TDOA from Reef Mariculture. Absolutely. Okay. That's the best way to go. Unless you want to hatch brine shrimp every day. They have to be newly hatched. You can't have 2-day-old brine.
I don't know
2 days, 3 days, no.
I don't know how well this works, but when I used to do that, I would put them in the fridge when they were fresh to slow down the metabolism, and then I could get a couple days out of them. Probably wasn't as nutritious, but it kind of worked.
Yeah, they're pretty nutritious like that. That is a good hack. It works.
Yeah. Okay, so rotifers for the first few days, and then you start with the super tiny, basically powder TDO, and just work your way up from there?
Yes. Right now, those fish I just showed you, those little baby fish, are eating a TDO B1.
Nice.
They're off the A. I overlap. I have to say there are some smaller fish in there, which you'll see. In anything that you breed, there's always the runts, and the bigger fish, or the bigger whatever it is, snakes or lizards or whatever you're breeding. Frogs there's always some small ones and some larger ones. So I overlap the food. I still feed A with the B1.
Yeah.
And then I'll go from B1 to B2, and I'll feed both of those at the same time as well.
Okay, nice. No, that makes sense, right? Because you got to cover your spectrum.
Just so everybody gets fed.
Okay. Melanie, thank you for the $5 super chat. Appreciate it. Paul was asking, have Robert explain what rotifers are. So they're tiny, smaller than a copepod, but go for it.
They are. The rotifer is named because of the wheel-like structure. That's how they move. They are motile, but they're slow. They're slow and they're very nutritious. The rotifer will eat and turn that food into waste in 4 hours. That's the length of their digestion. It takes 4 hours for to digest food, which is also good. When you feed them to larval clownfish, you want them to be well fed and gut loaded, and they'll do that. And they're slow moving, which is good. There are a couple different species of rotifers that we use in the trade, and the only the only two that I've ever used and will ever use or will ever need to use are the Brachionis plicatus, which are the LL strain rotifer,
Mm-hmm.
and the Brachionis rotundiformis. Now you hear that word rotundiformis, you think that's the large one, but that's a smaller one.
Huh, okay.
So the smaller rotifers are great for the larger clownfish because the larger clownfish, a lot of people don't know this or aren't aware, larger clownfish have smaller fry, smaller larvae.
Mm-hmm.
Like look at a gold striped maroon clownfish when they have larvae, and they have thousands of them at a time. They're tiny, tiny. They're almost half the size of an ocellaris
Oh, really?
larva.
Super tiny.
Yeah, super tiny. So they need super tiny food. You can,
Okay.
however, feed any clownfish either one.
Mm-hmm.
I found a better success rate with the Brachionis rotundiformis for the bigger clownfish. With the smaller babies. I have to say that the smaller babies.
Yeah.
They will eat the LL strain rotifers,
Mm-hmm.
but you see the success rate that you do with the smaller ones.
Interesting, eh? It's crazy the different ones, but I guess whatever food size is most, I guess, appetizing to them or they're gonna eat is gonna be higher success. So it makes sense.
Yeah, and the rotifers are the smallest animal in the food chain. When you see that those plankton blooms in the ocean, it's the tiniest one are the rotifers.
Yeah.
And they get consumed rather quickly.
Mm-hmm.
And
So-
did you know that 1 out of 10,000 clownfish make it in the wild?
Really?
1 out of
That's it.
10,000. Yep.
Wow, that's crazy.
We have skewed those odds. And here's another fun fact: that one clownfish that makes it
Yep.
will settle in 3 feet from where it was born.
That's so crazy.
How is that even possible?
No kidding.
Current waves.
Small world for a tiny little clownfish.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Well, look at the odds. So how many did you just have in your hatch? In the wild, you'd have one in there. There's probably hundreds.
150 at least. Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Wow.
Maybe more. But the next clutch is going to be huge. I'm going to get at least 600 babies out of that.
Wow, that's crazy. Now, how often do they lay for you? Like, is it monthly, every few months? Like, how often does it happen?
Well, under normal conditions,
Mm-hmm.
every 2 weeks.
Oh, wow, that's quite a bit. That's a lot of
Yeah.
clownfish.
Yeah. Well, they have to do that because only 1 out of 10,000 make it in the wild. So that's why they have so many so often.
Yep.
They want that one. They want that one fish to make it.
That's crazy.
Yep.
So,
Now my almost 30-year-old clownfish, they're going maybe once a month,
mm-hmm.
once a month and a half, something like that. They're slowing down a little bit.
hey, 30 years and still pumping out clownfish babies is pretty impressive. Not gonna lie.
It's the oldest spawning pair on record. The oldest one prior to mine was 22.
Nice. Well, keep that record going. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, they're breaking records every time they spawn.
Yeah. So is there any clownfish secret to longevity?
Yes. Try not to have any human error. That's what kills more clownfish than anything else. Is human error.
Yeah.
Power outages, heater malfunctions,
Mm-hmm.
Things like that. Not quarantining properly.
Yeah.
Bad quarantine practices that'll kill them as well. But the thing with the heaters is if you have a tank that requires, let's just say for example, it requires a 100-watt heater. Put 2 75-watt heaters in there.
100% with you on that one.
Yes, because if one stays on, it's not going to cook the fish.
Yep.
It'll only be one that's on, the other one will shut off. If one shuts off, fish aren't going to freeze.
Yep.
You don't have time to catch it.
I do 2 plus a heater controller for backup. Overkill on them all. But no, 100% agree with you. It's probably the most important thing that could potentially kill a tank. So, I mean, 100% with you.
Yeah, that's why you don't see more 30-year-old clownfish.
Yep, definitely.
Now, these clownfish I kept alive during Superstorm Sandy
Yeah.
by running a generator for 11 days straight. I didn't even. Maybe I shouldn't say this, but I didn't even turn the generator off to refuel it. I was afraid it wouldn't start.
Oh,
I didn't want the zombies going extinct.
yeah, no kidding. That's crazy.
They would have. You never would have seen them again.
Yep. So, okay, these are kind of leading questions, but there's two in the chat. One, what does he do with all those clownfish? And someone else is asking, do you sell clownfish or can they buy them from you?
Oh, yes, I do. And that's what I do with them. Yes, I do sell them.
Yep.
I guess people that are breeders love to get zombies when they are available.
Mm-hmm.
People who want to learn how to breed, they love to get my first generation from wild caught pair called F1 Black Darwins because it's the best fish that money can buy. The most sought after fish is the F1, not a wild caught, but the first generation that was raised in a tank.
Nice.
So yes, I do sell them. I had I had an issue a while back. A lot of my viewers will tell you all about it. I had a fish that I got. I had it in quarantine, and it was getting beat up by the other three fish. And without even thinking, I scooped them out and I put them into the system. It was just I don't know what it was. I don't know what it was. I'm going to use the language on the
Yeah.
It's terrible. I lost 250 fish because of that mistake.
Ouch. Yikes.
Yeah. So.
Lesson learned.
But, yeah, lesson learned. Absolutely. That's why these fish you just saw in the quarantine, they've been in there for over 2 months. They'll stay in there. I don't care. There's no money in the tank. Why not? They're healthy now and they're eating well. And I do treat. Here's another very important thing here. I have it right here. I do use Metroplex. That is the best medication. If you look at a product called General Cure, that's Metroplex.
Okay.
Use it.
Now, is it something that you use just as preventative in the tanks? Or is this just for quarantine for new stuff? Like, what exactly do you use the General Cure, the Metroplex for?
The Metroplex for quarantine, yes.
For quarantine, okay. So these are new clownfish that you bring into it?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. I don't do that too often. I do that when people, request a fish or they're looking for a certain fish. If I can find it, I'll get it for them. I'll put it in quarantine. Okay. I'm not putting it in my system. There's no way.
No, that's fair. Now,
yeah, if I see some, unusual fish or really good-looking fish, I'll get them.
Yeah, that's cool. And then just to mix it up. Now, how many different breeding pairs do you have currently?
4 that are breeding. 4 pairs that are breeding. I have the Black Darwins that are producing 25% albino offspring. That's how that works. Heterozygous and heterozygous will produce 75% albinos. I have, I can show you, but I have a pair upstairs that is an albino with a black, a black snowflake like this.
He's cool looking.
They're not breeding yet.
No.
So that snowflake actually has the albino gene. His parents were an albino mother and a snowflake father. So he has the albino gene, just waiting for them to go. These are both albino. Notice they're a little darker albinos. Real quick, albinism is a reduction or lack of melanin. You won't see any albinos with 0 melanin. There's always a little bit there,
Yep.
And some more than others. The more extreme the albinism, the less you'll see. Like these guys here. These are my favorites.
Nice. Now,
these are the grandchildren of my Black Darwins.
Now,
and they're spawning.
Nice.
And these guys, you saw them.
What is it with the clay pots that they seem to always like laying eggs in there? Anyone that's breeding clownfish always has the clay pots. Is there anything specific for that? That's why they're attracted to it, or?
They like the surface.
Yeah.
It's kind of a porous surface. The eggs stick to them well. People like them to remove them to hatch the fish. I never remove the clay pots, but they like laying in it. It's like a little sense of security there. It's like a hiding place for them. It's like a cave.
Yeah. Makes
Whereas
sense.
There's no cave, and if you want, fish will breathe in a reef tank as well. Right under the anemone and.
Yeah, that makes sense. That's kind of what they do in the wild.
Feel comfortable. See, that's the thing. They have to feel comfortable to breathe. That's another thing I forgot to mention. You want them to be comfortable. Don't mess with your tank too much. Don't be tapping the glass or anything like that.
Hmm. And probably only having clowns versus like a mixed reef with lots of other fish swimming around constantly probably makes a big difference too, right? Because they wouldn't feel as threatened or other stuff
Right.
on there.
Right. I have had my ocellaris bred in a tank that had a red sea tang. It had a coal tang.
Hmm.
It's nasty yellow-eyed coal tang.
Really?
And yeah, a pair of breeding mandarins, which is very cool.
Oh, that's cool. I've seen them do the breeding dance, but I haven't actually seen eggs from any. So that's cool though.
I was actually the first one in this country to breed mandarins.
Huh.
I
That's
could
awesome.
not get them. I could not get them to adults,
Ah, curses.
unfortunately. But I watched them spawn. They spawn like every other night. You know, they so often. Every other night they were spawning.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, yeah. And I collect the larvae, and that was I wish I could have got them to adults. I did get them to the point where I could see a little bit of blue and green on them,
Hmm.
and then they passed away. And I talked to Matt Wittenrich about this. That's actually how I met Matt at a MACNA. And he said to me, take me through the process. What did you do? And I said, well, I used a new 10-gallon tank and filled it up with tank water. And I noticed the spawn. And 12 hours later, I saw the eggs with tails swimming around the surface. And I siphoned them out and put them into the tank.
Yeah.
And after about 3 days, I noticed the mouth protrude from the egg. And that's when I put the rotifers in there. And he said, well, what type of rotifers? And I said, of course, the Brachionis rotundiformis. Of course.
Of course, of course.
That's good. That's good. And then what happened? I said, well, after about 2 weeks, they all started going to the bottom of the tank, and in a couple of days they died. He said, well, where were the rotifers? And I just dropped my head. I said, they were at the top.
Ah, dang.
Yeah. He said, rotifer cysts. That's the only thing I needed, because Matt Wittenrich is actually the first one to get them to adults
Huh.
in this country.
Yeah.
It was done in a laboratory in Japan before that.
Oh, crazy.
So, yeah. Pretty cool.
That's pretty cool. All right, question in the chat. Devin, can you ask what age are they distinguishable as far as what type they are? Mine are 7 weeks old, still kind of developing their patterns.
Oh, wow. 7 weeks. 7 weeks. That's a month and 3/4. Yeah, they'll continue to develop their patterns for the first 4 to 6 months.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And they're pretty set. Then they're pretty much set. That's what they're going to look like after that time.
Yeah. Now, in general, how much is there variation? Like if you have, I know some of your tanks, you had a black and white one and an orange one. Like is there a certain consistent ratio of kind of what the offspring are, or is it still kind of random every time?
Very random.
Yeah.
I can show you some of the. I'll show you some of the. They're called extreme blue snow onyx that you saw. That I was showing you the hatch setup.
Mm-hmm.
How that. They're extreme blue snow onyx. I'll show you some of their offspring.
Okay. So on that note, Blue Reef was asking, does he breed onyx clownfish? There you go. There's some onyx ones in there.
You see that one right back there?
Mm-hmm.
Looks like an ocellaris.
Yep.
See this one here? It looks kind of like a papula if the barring was a little better.
Mm-hmm.
And you'll see all variations like this one. Look how dark that one is. And those stripes will get blue, which is very cool.
That
and
is
then you
cool.
have your fish that do have the the extreme phenotype. So you'll notice a lot of those fish will have their ancestors phenotype. They look like Procula or Onyx or Ocellaris. They're all in there.
Yeah, that's crazy. It amazes me how many, I guess, variations have been bred of clownfish over the years. Like you see some of these charts and there's like 40 different types of clownfish pattern variations, which is crazy to see there's that many out there. But yeah,
It's hard to keep track.
Yes, it is.
It's a very cool thing that I witnessed with my ocellaris. I've tried it with the blacks. I'm always nervous about this, about not feeding them. But with my ocellaris, there was that time I didn't feed my larval clownfish when they first hatched.
Mm-hmm.
And it was stressed that has to be done. They're born with no egg sac. You have to feed them when they first hatch, or you'll have low success rate. And again, I missed the hatch. This was after I learned how to actually breed them, how to actually keep them alive. Bridget Green is my mentor on that. She is from Australia. She has a PhD in marine biology, and she did her thesis on breeding clownfish. So she taught me how to
Nice.
do it. Yes. So I was having 70% misbarred clownfish on each hatch. I didn't know what to do with that.
Yep.
And I know marine biologists who were working over 20 years. There was about 10 of them in a facility trying to figure out why. And they changed temperature, food, what they fed the food, and so many different things, pH and, salinity, and all those combinations add up to a lot of different combinations, but they tried everything. So I had a hatch that I missed. And I said, oh no. I woke up the next morning because I thought that was the day of the hatch. I must have marked it wrong on the calendar. And I had 150 fish in a tank, larval fish in a tank. I said, oh man, I better feed them. I didn't feed them when they first hatched. Every one of those fish had 3 stripes. Beautiful, 2 beautiful stripes.
Yep.
So I said, I wonder. The next hatch, I had 100 fish, and I fed them right away. 70 out of 100 were misbarred.
Huh. Okay.
I went back and forth 5 different times on that just to see. And every time I let them go until the next morning, they were full striped. So
Right.
I came to the conclusion that they need their rest more than they need food.
Huh. Interesting. So,
Yeah.
misbar, when you're saying that, you mean just like the patterns or the stripes are not what they normally are?
Yeah, like half the bar will be missing, or just pieces of the bar missing. I still have a lot of black misbars because, like I said, I'm afraid to not feed them. I don't want them to die. I mean, they're my babies. I don't want any of them to die, but I just get a little nervous. And I did try not feeding them the first night, and I had a lot on the bottom.
Yeah.
They left the water running too, so that didn't help. I may attempt it again, but here's the thing too: they're almost 30 years old. They're not going to keep feeding for much longer, I wouldn't imagine. So.
Now,
But that.
interesting genetic question. If you had like the offspring, would those offspring breed again, or do you mix it up and make sure you bring in different genetics so it's not kind of like the same offspring off together?
It takes. That's a good question, but it takes up to about F8 to F10 before you'll see any real health issues with the fish. I breed F1 with F1 in hopes to get more, more zombies.
Yeah.
Because here's another thing: I told you 25% of the fish will be albino. Out of the other 75% of the fish that are black, 66% of those will be heterozygous for albinism.
Which means what?
They carry the albino gene.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And the other 33% will only produce black offspring for the rest of their lives.
So it's just a numbers game of combinations and luck to try and get more of them?
Pretty much, yes.
Yeah.
I can pick out the heterozygous fish because of there is a definite lack of melanin in some of the fish. So not actually albino, but you can see there's a lack of melanin. So those are the ones that I have paired up.
So you can up your odds in the genetic lottery.
Yeah. Well, right now I don't need to do that anymore.
Mm-hmm.
I do have a lot of zombies and snow zombies, and I understand that they will eventually be in the long fins. I hope.
Yeah.
But don't get me started on long fins. Anyway.
I'm still undecided if I like them or not. I looked at them; they're cool, but I'm still undecided on them. The jury's out for me.
Yeah, well, that's an example of excessive inbreeding.
Mm-hmm. Oh, you think so? That's what actually caused it originally? Past that F8 or 9 stage?
Yeah. Well, they have mouth tumors.
Oh, really?
Which is indicative of overbreeding, over inbreeding.
Yep.
A lot of those get real bad mouth tumors.
Crazy. Now, I guess if they're trying to keep the purity of that one genetic defect, I mean, that is definitely a risk that would come over time.
I'm sorry, say that again?
I'm going to say that's probably a definite risk, too, especially if they're like, oh, this one has crazy fins, and they're trying to keep that, right? So.
Yes. Yeah, excessive inbreeding isn't good.
Yeah.
That is also why it's important to find an F1 fish, to
Mm-hmm.
try to see the gene. I have paired up a lot of my storms with an F1.
Yeah.
So the offspring will be, it's almost like starting from scratch, they'll be so much better off with that first generation from wild caught gene.
Yeah, for sure. Now, do you find a difference if you're trying to get them to breed with wild versus captive? If you're mixing them together or trying to get a new pair going?
No, the only difference is, when you get a wild caught fish, you could have a host of different diseases, and you don't know how they're going to do in a captive situation.
Mm-hmm.
Although we're finding that they usually do pretty well,
Yeah. Okay.
whereas their offspring have only ever known tanks.
Yep. So they're good.
They're good. Yeah, they're good. But yeah, wild caught, and I don't like stripping the reefs of their fish.
Well, especially when there's only one per spawn, not hundreds of them. So
1 out of 10,000. Yeah, that's
that is insane. Super crazy.
yeah, that's one out of about 20 spawns. So yeah, not
wow, that's crazy. I had no idea it was that low. When
the amount of fish we have now, the amount of clownfish we have now, and the amount of breeders we have now, there's no need to take any more fish off the reef.
Yeah, 100% with you on that one. Clownfish seem to be one of the easier ones to breed for saltwater, so it's a good thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Now, out of all the clowns that you have, which one's your favorite? Your favorite type, I guess.
My favorite types?
Yeah. What's your faves?
Well, that would be the zombies.
Zombies? Nice.
Yeah. But my favorite fish are my 29-year-olds.
Yeah. Now, is it just because you've had them for 29 years?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And, I've actually, that fish, that female almost died 3 times.
Really? What happened?
The first time she got a mouthful of bristles from a bristleworm. She stopped eating for about 2 weeks, and the infection was really bad. I actually had to take her out of the tank and put her in my hand with there was no fuss. She just went right into my hand, and I pulled the bristles out of her mouth. Crazy. Yeah. And I dosed the tank with metronidazole, the Metroplex, and she made a comeback. Nice. And I was really happy about that. And then the next time she was egg bound, and again, when she was egg bound, her ovipositor was ripping through her belly, so inflamed and swollen. And I put the net in the tank, and she swam right into the net.
Yeah.
When she didn't even flip her, she didn't also, she knows me. We have a relationship. And I actually I had to massage her belly to break up the eggs.
Really?
And she was 27 or 26 years old, 27 years old, I think, when I did that. I said, there's no way she's going to make it.
That's
and I did that twice because the first time didn't break them up. I did it twice. And then I stopped feeding 3 days in hopes that she would reabsorb the eggs, which she did. And here she is today.
That's crazy. Oh, yeah. Good thing you did it. It worked.
Oh, yeah, yeah. And the third time was just about 2 months ago.
Mm-hmm.
She had a big infection on her lip. I think she had another bristleworm inside her mouth this time.
Oh.
But her lips turned white, and they were swollen. She couldn't open her mouth. She couldn't eat. I thought she was done.
Dang.
But here she is laying.
She's a survivor, eh?
She really is. Now, also, a thing that most people don't know about clownfish is they are compassionate.
Mm-hmm.
And I had a facility back in 2012, and I had some clownfish in there, and they got there was an ammonia spike or a new tank syndrome type thing going on, and I came in the morning into the facility, and a lot of the fish were laying on the bottom. I said, "Oh no!" So did a major water change, and this pair of oscillators didn't think they were going to make it. She was laying on the bottom, breathing heavy.
Yep.
I scooped her and her mate out, and I put them in a standalone 10-gallon tank, and she would not eat. And then as I was watching her, she went like this, and she just went right down on her side. The male came over, and with his nose, pushed her up.
Aw.
Up against the glass for 2 weeks.
That's awesome.
I fed the tank. I fed pellets. The male would come over and get a pellet, put it in his mouth, and bring it over to her. And from his mouth to hers, he fed her.
That's so cool.
And she made it.
That is awesome.
Most people don't ever see anything like that.
That is so crazy. That is really cool.
They have compassion, you know.
No, they totally do. Oh, that's an amazing story. That would have been crazy to see. That's really cool.
Yeah.
I don't know. Okay, other random question. Between Perculera, Osculera, the different types of clownfish, do you notice any big differences in like their personalities and kind of how they are?
Ocellaris are the most peaceful.
Mm-hmm.
And then you get into your gold stripe maroons, and a lot of people tell you they know
Yeah,
they,
I've heard that about maroons.
they are possessed.
Yeah.
I have a scar on my thumb I could show you from a gold stripe maroon clownfish. But yeah, they're very nasty. But you know, all clownfish have different characters.
Mm-hmm.
You know, have different characters. I mean, I tell you, Ocellaris, in my opinion or my experience, have been the most passive fish. You know, they're really friendly and nice, but then you'll get that one that, you know,
Don't touch their house.
flash you when you walk by the tank, or yeah, or bite you when you put your hand in the tank. Yep. So it's, but I do notice that the super coolers are beautiful. They're also very, very docile,
Mm-hmm.
but they're just a little more aggressive
Yeah.
from what I've seen than the Ocellaris, but still very friendly fish.
That's fair. I've only ever had perks. So I don't know. I'll try some other ones eventually. I said the good old standard perks, just the classic clownfish, but I do like the black and white ones. I might try those next. But
Oh, they're awesome. They're
yeah.
awesome. Oh, and I did have trying to think of the name. It was a midnight clownfish. I think it was mostly black.
Mm-hmm.
He was this the spawn of Satan. He was- wow.
Yeah.
No matter what fish I tried to put that fish with, he would just tear him up.
Dang.
So
Oh, so okay. On that note, if you are trying to make a pair and introduce a new clownfish to your existing one, like I know the more dominant one will turn female. So in general, do you just want to introduce a smaller one, or is there any kind of tips or tricks to adding a second one into a tank that's already has an established one?
always a smaller one.
Yeah.
Always a smaller one, because if you're just getting the fish, and you get a medium-sized fish, that medium-sized fish may have been the largest fish in the tank that it came from.
Yeah.
It may have already turned female.
Mm-hmm.
Put two females together, it's fight to the death, because they can't go back to male. They just can't.
One time only?
It's physically impossible. They can't do it. One time only.
Yeah.
Yes, a male can turn into a female, but once it's a female, it can never go back to male.
If you're buying one, is there any way to know if it's a female or male?
Just usually by the size.
Okay.
And a lot of times when you get smaller fish, that's why it's great to start with juveniles, because you know they're both non-sexed. They don't have a sex yet.
Mm-hmm.
They don't have it until it's needed. You know, some people say they're all born male. I'm not sure about that. I think they're all born with no sex at all.
They just figured out, just say whatever needs to be.
The most dominant fish becomes the female. The second most dominant becomes the male. And the others just stay the way they are until it's needed. They don't have a sex until it's needed, is what I understand
That's
to
crazy.
be true.
Yeah.
Don't quote me on that. They could all be male. I don't know.
Who knows? That's still pretty. It's amazing that they could actually change sex. They're like, oh, we don't have a female. All right, I'll step up. It's just crazy to think that they could do that.
Yeah. I'll take it over. I'll be female.
All right, I'll do. In the chat,
But always get a smaller fish to add.
okay.
Especially if you're going for if you're doing Clarkies or if you're doing maroons. The only way you're ever going to pair up a maroon clownfish is to get the biggest female, let her get her space in the tank, her territory, and you know the space that she's not going to let any other fish into. And then you find the smallest maroon clownfish you can and dump it right in there, right in the female's territory, in hopes that he will cower immediately, show no. That's how you pair maroon clownfish.
Oh, poor guy. Be humble. Approach quietly and nicely. Hopefully she accepts you. Oh, crazy. Yeah, Tien was saying, talk about vicious. The Clarkies are the nasty ones.
Yeah, Diane has what she thought were Clarkies. They turn out to be Bisyncus.
I've never even heard of that one.
You asked,
Bisyncus?
Yeah, Bicyncus. Yeah, oh, look it up. Gorgeous, beautiful. They
Hmm.
are. They do look a little like larkies, but they have like a longer flowing fin and some white around the eyes, and they're gorgeous. The main difference is larkies are about 25, $30.
Yeah.
Bicyncus are about 135 a piece.
Oh, so that's an easy way to tell which one they are by the price.
How about the price? But no, if you look at their fins, they're beautiful. They have long flowing fins, and the markings are just really nice.
Huh, very cool. Okay, unrelated clownfish question. Phil was asking, does Robert or anyone know if a male lyre-tail anthea can change back to female? I swear my male has changed back. No idea.
Male change back to female. Wait, male can change to female. Yes.
This was with
Female
antheas, though, not clowns, but I'm assuming it's probably similar.
is probably similar. Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah, I'm sure it's similar. Yeah.
Yeah, crazy. Yeah, female took a beating when she was transitioning. Yeah, it's when the male. It yeah, I don't know. It is crazy, but yeah, a lot of people freak out when they see that going back and forth. But there generally is that couple weeks of who's the boss and until they find
Yeah.
their place. Now, how about having a bunch of clownfish, like more than a pair in a tank? You know, like multiple pairs or mixing different types. Any advice, I guess, around there?
Yes. Add them all at the same time.
Hmm.
Make sure you have enough room. Each clownfish should have 3 feet of space. So if you have say you have a 100-gallon or a 125, that's 6 feet long. That's fine.
Two pairs.
Um, put 2 pairs in there without a problem. Put 1 pair in on one side, put the other pair in on the other side at the same time.
Hmm. At the
Uh,
same time, not later.
at the same time. Don't try to put fish in there later because they will get beaten up.
Okay.
Now, a lot of people ask questions about harem tanks as well. Harem tanks are fine. They're not forever.
Hmm.
There's going to be aggression at some point. When the female gets big and she's ready to lay eggs, she's going to attack.
Okay. So eventually it might bite you.
Yeah, so if you have 20 fish, usually she won't pick on one fish all the time, but
Hmm.
she'll beat every one of them up. That's all. That's just the way it works.
Yeah. No. Fair. Okay, so actually, Robert probably has the record here, but Donna, how many years can a female spawn for? So you're going 29 years now, which is probably the record.
That's the record, yes.
Yeah.
Normally, well, whenever you're talking about clownfish, normally is usually not a word that you can use. But yes, I have seen them spawn up to 22 years. Usually around 20 and they're done.
Mm-hmm.
But 22 was the oldest, and that was
7 years ago.
10 years ago. Yeah,
That's awesome. Oh, that's pretty cool.
yeah.
So,
But people look at that and say, "Wow, 22 years still spawning. That's incredible." But now, I haven't heard of any older than 22. And if anyone on your YouTube channel, if anyone has heard of fish older than clownfish older than 22 years old spawning, tell them to please let me know
mm-hmm.
because
Yeah.
I don't ever want to spread any kind of misinformation. That's what I've heard by a few people that 22 years is the oldest.
Well, I'm thoroughly impressed that you have 29 years going on now. So that's crazy.
Yes, and still spawning. And
That's
the cool thing about that, I don't know if I mentioned this about the telomeres and the DNA. Did I mention that?
do tell.
Well, in the in the older fish, just like in people and any animal, the older a person gets, the telomeres in the DNA will start to break down. That's the tail end of the DNA.
Mm-hmm.
That's why when our skin reproduces, we lose dead cells and new cells take its place. That's why we get wrinkles, and
Yeah.
all the things we get with old age.
Mm-hmm.
Same thing with clownfish. The telomeres in the DNA start to break down. That tail end of the DNA, the telomere, holds a lot of code. So now when that starts breaking down, you're going to see some really bizarre striping in the fish.
So the older breeding pair actually can help bring up a lot of these funky but different patterns and different.
That, I believe, is where the original designer clownfish came from, an elderly breeding pair. But you're going to see on my fish in the future You see it now. I mean, there's some really crazy striping going on. A fish with a cross on his head, a couple with the trident, like a trident symbol for the head stripe. We haven't seen the other two stripes come in yet,
Huh, that's
but
pretty cool.
I have seen some in the past with like zigzags and lightning bolt type things, and really, really unusual misbarring.
That's pretty crazy. Now,
And that's elderly pair, yeah.
no, just as like an example, if you had, a couple that had that lightning kind of pattern and you bred those two together, would you likely get more of that, or would it be back to random again? Like, do they pass those traits on?
You would get a lot of those fish. Yes, that's called the dominant strain.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas albinism is a recessive trait,
Mm-hmm.
which means that yes, if you have two albinos, you're getting albino offspring.
Yeah.
No way around it. If you have two heterozygous fish, you're getting 25% albino offspring. With the dominant trait, you should get quite a few with that phenotype. Not all of them. You're not going to get all of them like that, but you'll get quite a few.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's always good to have the pair.
So you'll get your batch of special blends and some of the random ones.
Special blend. Yes.
Yeah, special blends.
Now, I don't know if you knew this about the lightning maroon clownfish, for example. That was Matt Peterson got the first one.
Mm-hmm.
That came from the wild.
Oh, it came in like that.
It came in from the wild like that, which leads me to believe that somewhere on that reef, there was a pair of fish that found just the right spot, and they lived a long, long time to produce fish like that.
Mm-hmm.
Just my belief. It's not fact, but
Yeah.
don't mistake fact. It's my belief.
That's a solid belief.
That fish just recently passed away.
Oh, that's too bad.
Lightning.
So now, assuming that did come in wild like that, the part to like blow your mind even more is considering that that's like 1 out of 10,000 that made it out of that clutch.
That's right. Yes. Yeah, that's crazy, right?
So crazy, but that's awesome.
Well, never see albino clownfish in the wild. That would be like 1 billion to 1 or more,
Yeah.
because they're albino.
Mm-hmm.
They're more they're light sensitive. It's not that people think that they're blind, they can't see, but can't be true.
Mm-hmm.
They would never pass more, but they are sensitive to bright light,
Yeah.
especially sudden bright light. They're sensitive. So yeah, so the albino making it in the wild is probably not going to happen.
Yeah, that's fair. Okay, so Phil's asking, haven't really heard much about the zombie clownfish. Is it the red eyes the trait, or what makes it a zombie?
Oh, yes, good question. It's the lack of melanin. That's
Okay.
what makes it albino. If you look up albinism, it's a lack of melanin.
Mm-hmm.
Some have more of a lack than others. You'll see more orange. Now, sorry about that. I was at first I thought that the orange was the muscle beneath the translucent skin.
Mm-hmm.
Still very well may be. Although there's not just melanin in a fish, there's all other pigments as well. And orange is probably one of those pigments that you're looking at. Now, the red eyes, how do I explain this? Our eyes, anybody's eyes, you see a black pupil?
Yeah.
And on my eyes, I have a brown iris. Well, if I was albino,
Mm-hmm.
the brown iris would be gone. That's melanin. The pupil, the retina, is jam-packed full of melanin. That's why you have black pupils.
Mm-hmm.
Take away that melanin. Now, when you hear the term blood red eyes, that's literally
Huh.
you're looking at. You're looking at the blood behind the eye.
Oh, crazy.
That's why the eyes are red.
So there's no
Yes.
pigment, so you're basically just seeing straight through to the red.
Yep. There's
Huh.
no melanin. Yeah, and that's the main pigment in an eye is melanin. Yeah.
Huh. Interesting. Now,
Yeah.
do they lose that red eye? Like, does that change over time, or does it
Nope.
stay there? So red
Stays
eyes.
there.
Okay. So basically, the red eyes is like a big trait of the zombie clownfish.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Huh, that's
Yeah.
pretty cool.
That's why they were called zombies, because of the red eyes. But yes.
Did you make up that name, or is that something that was already there?
Actually, I was on I think it was a MoFib page, and I was talking to different people about it, and nobody wanted to believe that they were zombies. Oh, it's camouflage. And, nobody would give it to me. It's like, no, they're not rare. They're normal fish. And lights out. But the red eyes. One guy said, "Wow, they look like zombies." I'm like, there you go.
Yeah, they are
Thanks.
now.
Yep, absolutely, they are.
Nope, super duper cool. Okay, so now, if somebody wants to acquire some of your awesome zombie clowns, is it best to contact you through your website, Facebook? How would someone acquire some of your awesome offspring?
Yeah, follow me on Facebook, and then I do videos almost every day.
Yep.
However, my live videos may be on YouTube soon because I'm having a bit of a tough time with Facebook.
We'll get you on there.
Yeah. So you can follow me on Facebook for now.
Okay.
Robert King's Clownfish.
Okay, perfect.
And check out the website, zombieclownfish.com. You can check me out. You can find me there and send me a private message, and we'll talk. I do have a lot of up and coming zombies.
Nice.
Right now, there are only 8 adults in the world. I'm sorry, I have to make that 7 adults in the world. Zombies. That's it.
Crazy.
Another one just passed away due to human failure.
Dang.
Yeah, air conditioner broke in the summertime. And,
that sucks. 7.
But 7 in the world, which makes it the rarest fish in the hobby, or in the world, maybe in the world. I don't know.
That's crazy.
Definitely rare. But I am getting to that point now where I have a lot of zombies up and coming, and I have no doubt that they will make it. There's a waiting list right now. There's quite a few people on that list, but I'm going to fulfill those orders and chip away at that list real quick now. Nice. I have about 30 in this tank that I showed you, and I will probably get another 100 out of this next hatch.
Oh, wow. Nice. Perfect.
And manage to get 100 babies, I'll have 100 more zombies. So
that's awesome.
Yes, message me and we'll set you up. It's going to be about 6 months before they're big enough to ship.
Okay. But get the zombies back out there. 7 to a couple hundred, back in a happy place.
Yeah.
Awesome. Now, if anyone does want to do it, I did put the website link in the description, so you can click on it and find the website there if you guys missed it later. So, should be good.
Very cool. Thank you, Danny.
Robert, thank you for coming on today. I appreciate it. I'll help you get rolling with your YouTube later. We'll get you set up and figured out. But yeah, thanks for coming on and sharing so much knowledge today.
Well, thank you for having me. It's great. I've been watching your videos and awesome stuff.
Awesome. And again too, if you guys want to do more clownfish knowledge, I know you're on there almost daily streaming about something. So definitely a fountain of knowledge.
Usually at 7 o'clock.
7 o'clock Eastern?
7 o'clock, yeah. Eastern Standard Time. I usually go live. And we have some really cool stuff coming up. Like next Thursday will be the Black Hatch.
Nice.
I'll show you how I collect the larva on next Thursday night at 8:47 is when they're going to hatch. So,
how do you know when they're going to hatch so specifically?
I really get some really lucky guesses, but I know about what time.
Okay, that's pretty crazy. That's awesome.
Half hour after the lights out, so I guess within a minute or two. I've hit it spot on a couple times. My neighbor came to my house and said, "Bob, when are those fish going to hatch?" I said, "They're going to hatch it Thursday at 7:44." Ralph, really? He came to my house that Thursday at 7:43, and he looked. He said, "I don't see anything." I said, "Ralph, it's only 7:43."
2 more minutes.
At 7:44 exactly, it looked like an air stone went off. The babies just started popping out of everywhere. Like, oh my God, I can't believe that.
That is.
I was close, but
that is so crazy, but awesome. I love it. Awesome. So definitely make sure you guys check that out because that is super cool. And thank you again, Robrt. If you guys want to check out his stuff, I mean, Facebook, or I believe Facebook's linked off the website. So link in the description. And I'm sure I'll lure you on again one day.
Yeah. Well, hey, thank you. And hey, check out the shirts. Pretty cool, huh?
Awesome. Black zombie clowns. Love it.
I'm hoping to get a ReefDudes shirt soon.
Yeah. All right. We'll work on this. We'll swap a shirt later.
Hey, Devin, it was great. It was great hanging out with you tonight.
Definitely. Thank you so much. Everyone who's watching, hope you guys enjoyed it. Check out the link in the description.